This is a quick start guide for the Excel Skills IFRS Fixed Asset Register template. This comprehensive template enables users to compile a complete fixed asset register, which allows for depreciation on a straight line basis and incorporates revaluations of assets as per international financial reporting standards. You can process there's an unlimited number of revaluations that can be processed. So it's a relatively complex template. Let's start with the setup sheet. Okay, you can enter your business name, which is used as a heading on all of the other sheets. You select a year and month, and then enter income tax percentage. So the next section is asset classes. So those are typically the main financial statement classes. And then we also provide for asset categories, which are subcategories of these main classes. So each category code would be linked to one of the main classes. And then there's also a setup of the account numbers because we have a automated journal as part of the template. So your general ledger account numbers for cost, accumulated depreciation, revaluations, that's the reserve, impairment, profit or loss on sale, deferred tax balance sheet, and deferred tax income statement. The next section is your wear and tear allowances. So we've got a number of different wear and tear allowance options. The app column is whether apportionment for a part of the year needs to be applied. If it's yes, then it's obviously yes, otherwise no. A description, and then your wear and tear rates for up to 5 years, and if your 5-year total isn't 100%, then the year 5 percentage will be continued with. This is just a factor for the apportionment. So the input error codes at the bottom of the sheet are provided just for information purposes. If you encounter input error, these codes, the reasons for these codes are displayed here. It's also in the instructions. So that's basically the setup. Let's have a look at the asset sheet. So your first step when you use the template and after you've reviewed the setup information is to start creating assets. So you create an asset number, a unique asset number on this sheet. There's an asset ID number provided for, which can be a longer, uniquely identifiable number, which sometimes appears on the asset. A comprehensive description. The asset type is between owned and leased. You link each asset to a category, and you link each asset to a tax code. So those yellow columns are the user input columns. The blue columns are all calculated automatically. So you'll see at the top of the sheet, you also have a review date that you specify, and all the calculations are adjusted whenever you change that date. So just another point on the assets. When you initially record an asset, a new asset, nothing actually happens in terms of calculations until you've recorded an addition or acquisition transaction on the transaction sheet for that particular asset. So creating an asset just creates the code. Basically, it doesn't put any values to the asset yet. So please don't change any of the formulas or replace any of the formulas with values. You need to capture a transaction to create the value, the historical cost initially, or the revalued amount for the asset. Only the columns with yellow column headings here are user input columns. So I'm not going to cover all the calculated columns. A lot of it's just to do with creating the values, columns that are used in other calculations. So I'm going to just point out that there's an assets at cost section, which starts with a carrying value, opening balance, additions, revaluations, disposals, impairment, and closing balance. Then you have your accumulated depreciation section, which separates depreciation between the cost and revaluation amounts to create a total. You have accumulated depreciation on disposals and revaluation if a reevaluation occurs. And then you have your accumulated depreciation closing balance. That gets you to a closing carrying value, the difference between a cost and accumulated depreciation. And then you have your revaluation reserve. So it also indicates the movement in the reserve. Impairment write-offs and profit or loss on sale of disposal. There's a section for current month's depreciation split between cost and revaluation. And then you have a carrying value at historical cost, which is a financial statement disclosure. So it's included separately, that section. And then there's a tax section for your tax values, followed by the deferred tax section. So it's quite a lot to take in terms of this guide. I'm just covering it quickly so you can review the detailed instructions as to where all these calculations come from. So let's go to the transact sheet. Again, columns with yellow column headings are user input columns, and the light blue columns are calculated automatically. So transaction date, this can be entered based on your regional date settings. The transaction type, the template provides for 3 transaction types. So you'd have an acquisition. That is what you initially record to capitalize the cost of the asset. The second one is disposal, and the third one is revaluation. So you can capture one acquisition and one disposal for an asset, but you can capture multiple revaluations on the same code. Once you dispose of an asset, it's gone. So that asset code can't be used for anything else. Acquisition, you would record only once initially. So the asset number, all the asset numbers that have been created on the asset sheet will be available for selection. So you must create your asset code first and then capture your acquisition transaction. Then we have supplier document number and then your amount. So the amount will be the cost. When you do a revaluation, the amount that you enter will be the revalued amount. Okay, it's not the amount of the revaluation, it's the revalued amount. And then you have your lifetime in years for the asset. If there's a residual value, you enter it in that column. And if you dispose of an asset, the proceeds on the sale should be included in column I. If you write an asset off, it should be recorded as a disposal, but with no proceed. Okay, so the columns with light blue column headings are all calculated, contain formulas, and these formulas are automatically extended. There's too many of them to cover now. You can have a look at the detailed instructions. But these calculations are basically just used to calculate all of the amounts that we refer to on the other sheets, including the asset sheet, which we've just had a look at. So let's go to the category sheet. So the category sheet, all the categories that you create on the setup sheet are included on this sheet. And again, it has assets at cost, cumulative depreciation, closing carrying value, revaluation reserve, impairment write-offs, profit or loss on disposal, and current month depreciation sections. So these are per category. Then you have your class sheet, which is your financial statement classes, and it has exactly the same categories as the in terms of the calculations as the category sheet. Okay, so that's the classes sheet. It's just a summary of all the categories. And then you have the journal sheet. Now, the journal sheet, um, in the category section on the setup sheet, you include general ledger accounts for different types of entries or transactions. And those are used here to provide you with an automated journal report. So this can be used to post entries in your general ledger. We provide for year-to-date as well as months-to-date entries. Okay. And these are the transactions that you can post, depreciation on historical cost, depreciation on revaluations, additions, revaluation at cost, revaluations, cumulated depreciation. You've got the cost, impairment, the cost part, the disposals, the proceeds, and the cost of disposals and accumulated depreciation, the releasing of the revaluation reserve after disposals, and deferred taxation. Okay, so it's a lot to take in. It's quite a complex template. But if you refer to the instruction sheet, we cover everything in detail. You can also refer to our support section on our YouTube channel, where we post videos based on user feedback.